These guys worked on a side project for 3 years and ended up selling over $1 million at launch. I'll be doing a deep dive into how to launch a business with practically no followers, risk and constraints involved when scaling, and a full costing and profit breakdown. What is Good Vibes Club?
Good Vibes Club is a high-end art approach to the 3D PFP that maybe has not been done before prior. But at the end of the day, what we really are aiming to do is to create a community of authenticity, of people who can kind of connect and revolve around loving art and also being able to be genuine with one another.
I'm Alvin. I built and sold an e-com brand that had over 100,000 customers, #1 in Amazon, and I now help NFT projects become household names. This is Minted by Alvin. How do you launch a business with no followers? The first thing is you gotta leverage on your existing community. So for Good Vibes Club, the founders leveraged on their existing art community, right? They know that they're gonna target art collectors, people who are deep in art. And I think a question that you can ask yourself is, what communities are you already a part of? And look to engage in those first, right? Like not all of us, I think a lot of people think that you need millions and millions of followers to launch a product, to launch a brand. And I think Good Vibes Club is a great example of how, like, even with very small targeted audiences, you can really have a very successful launch. And it's the seed of building a very big, relevant brand. The second thing that they did was to embrace the unscalable things early on. So things like doing one-to-one calls with their followers, people who engage with their content, DMing followers. And this seems very unscalable, and a lot of like new founders tend to not want to do these types of things. But personally, I think it's so essential and so important, especially at the beginning, to get to know who your customer is, get to know why they like your project. And it really helps, especially from a business standpoint with your whole team, when everyone sees that the founder is so in the trenches with you. The third thing is, I think the founders were so cognizant of where their audience lives at. So this is really important in marketing, right? You want to know, like you want to go to where your audience is. So for example, in their situation, a lot of their audience, that their target user, I think, would be art collector first, people who are really deep into art collection. And a lot of them live on Twitter. And they did a lot of like heavy Twitter spaces, live streams, they did like co-creation with the art, with the community, right? And I think that really was super good from a marketing standpoint. And it was great time investment for them in terms of sweat equity, because sometimes you could be working really hard and putting a lot of effort, but you're in the wrong space, in the wrong area, and it may not pay off the way you like it. So I think to first ask yourself, like, where is your community living at? You know, they could have easily considered Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. There's so many other platforms, right? And I don't even think they did, you know, any distribution of content on those platforms, which some people would say is a waste. They could just easily post it there. But I think just focusing, making sure that they nail Twitter, which is where their audience they want to target is amazing for them. The next thing that they did was to engage influencers, and some people call it KOLs, right? Basically, just someone with an audience that you want to engage with, and this person is trusted in that community, and you as a business go to them, usually pay them some money or give them something, and then they will share your thing with the audience. I think they did something called honoraries, and they're not the first one to do it, right? There are other projects that have done it. So basically they did 3D art in the reflection of the influencer, and then they gave it to them, right? I don't think they paid the influencer. This is my estimate. I think they just give the Good Vibe Club art, the unique one, to the influencer. And what ended up happening was that the influencers just posted it because you're so happy to receive one, right? So let's say, imagine in your case, if you receive a unique one that looks a bit like you, that really represents you, you'd be so proud of it and you want to share it on Twitter, right? So I think they did a really, really good job of that from a marketing standpoint. Here's a very simple framework for you to see where your biggest leverage is at. So the highest form of leverage would be people. This is why a lot of like top CEOs talk about how mentors and talents is so important. the highest leverage is people. Second one would be AI right now. I put AI/code. Third one would be content. Content is leverage because you could post something and it can live there and work for you while you sleep, right? Next one would be capital. So that would be your Warren Buffett, your Ray Dalio. They can invest cash and the cash can work for them while they sleep. And last one would be brand. So in Good Vibes Club scenario, for people, they would have artist friends, and that's not to be underestimated by, because a lot of them shared the Good Vibes Club project, right? And the next thing also, one of the founders had experience working in Reddit. So Reddit did like this avatars, digital asset drop that went quite successfully, and he was very involved in that. So that definitely helped so much from a mentoring standpoint and a talent standpoint. From a code standpoint, and AI would be, for my research, they had someone on their team build a custom tool to make this 3D art, right? So this creates another barrier of entry for people who want to do this. Next thing would be content. So amazing creative. I think that's their strength, like amazing creative and having content that really resonates with the audience. So I was sharing earlier that the founders are still running, if I'm not wrong, or like they ran an animation studio and they worked with companies like Google, Facebook. They did things like the Facebook Messenger logo, Google Workspace unveiling, and they have a history of doing things that was seen by like billions of people. So I think that allows them to really like do, they have the skill set to do like good creative. Next thing will be capital. So this side project that the founders worked on, they worked on it for 3 years, right, while running the animation studio. So if you think about it, not many people could just work on something for art's sake for 3 years without the need of, okay, I gotta quickly make cash from this year, if not I'm gonna go broke. And this is a huge leverage for them, and not many people are able to do this, right? So I think just before I continue the video, this is a good framework for you guys to see like where your biggest leverage is at and how you can maximize your leverage moving forward in your situation. Overall, for Good Vibes Club's go-to-market strategy, I will score them on a few things. The first thing would be brand, and you can really tell that they have experience doing branding strategy from start to end. It's like super congruent visually, and their messaging is very congruent. I'll give them a score of 4 out of 5. So I hope the Good Vibes Club community won't hate on me on this. The only thing I would implore the founders, I guess, or for me, like if I was a founder, I would consider is I'll just be a little bit more polarizing my message. A little bit more polarizing, right? You want it to have this, like I make a stance here and there'll be a whole bunch of people that hate on you a little bit, but there are a whole bunch of people that really love you. And a stance that I think they could potentially go deeper on is because these founders are really about building something for the long term, doing something meaningful, not looking for like a cash grab, which is infamous in the crypto and Web3 space, right? Not looking for like quick extraction of their audience. So I think they could just bite on it a little bit more of this is our enemy here. We're not doing this for superficial reasons, for hype reasons. We don't like hype-driven founders, which maybe is not in the Good Vibes nature. They could say it in a way that fits them. I'll really just bite on this a little bit more, and I think that could even attract their raving fans, their audience even more, right? Because for me personally, I had to dig quite deep to really get a sense that this is one of their core values and their messaging.
In a moment in time in which all we're experiencing is mass bullshit and mass extraction, we're just trying to build authentically with our community, with what we're doing to build IP, and with what we aim to do in the long term. And so I think that it's really important for, projects like us and also other projects to really speak up right now, because the community, obviously with what's going on with Libra and mass extraction is really damaging. And so we're just stoked to be able to be here to talk to you guys and ultimately to kind of fight the good fight, so to speak.
But if I just saw the project initially, it's still super cool, right? And you can tell that the branding is so congruent, but I would just personally prefer them if they just bite on this a little bit more. The second part would be strategy. Yeah, strategy, I'll give them a 5 out of 5. I think especially for startup phase, right? Them doing like unscalable things, doing all these like live streaming on Twitter, I think it went really, really well and it shows in the results. I would say moving forward, the strategy may change in different phases and who knows what they will score here. But for now, I'll definitely give them a 5. Target users, I will give them a 4.5, 4.5, and I can explain why. So they targeted art collectors, and I think, and my guess is also they targeted NFT enthusiasts. The last set of audience, which if I were them, I would consider also targeting, especially moving forward, would be people in tech. Because people in tech are crypto aware, and most of them probably have a little bit of crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana type of thing. They're aware of crypto, they have some cash, and a lot of them, especially if they work for like big tech companies, they want to invest in alternative investments, right? Especially the younger audience. So I think it's such a good audience to consider to approach, and especially given the founder's background, I think I could see them really resonating with people in tech. Okay, next thing will be positioning. Yeah, positioning, I give them a 4 out of 5 again. They position themselves as like high-end art, the best 3D PFP in the ecosystem right now. But their min price was, I think, 0.1 Ethereum. I think they had a range. It's like an auction at the end, which is in USD terms is like $150 to $200 at that point in time. If I were them, I would have really considered pricing it much higher or doing like tiered pricing. Maybe even maybe splitting the collection into different parts. Maybe like one, maybe you can pay a little bit more, like 0.5 Ethereum or 1 to raffle a rarer Good Vibes Club art piece, and maybe a cheaper one for people who just want entry into it. I'll consider something like that, because since they're positioning themselves as a high-end art, if they were to sell the mint at such a low price, and I get the sentiment of you want people to have a low entry, and also the timing in the market for art especially is not easy to launch when they launched it. I get maybe that's why they consider to do it at such a low price. But for the longevity and the long term of it, there's definitely debate to price it a little bit higher at the start. And I think that they would still have minted out. Maybe it would have taken a little bit longer, but I think that they had a good chance of minting out. The next one will be influencer use. And my one comment here would be, generally speaking, for people who want to use influencers, from my experience and when I see some of my friends run bigger brands that are experienced with influencers, you rather work with one influencer that is the right one versus having like 20 influencers that have a sizable audience that seems to be in your niche. And I can explain why. So the right influencer would be someone that already uses your product in every video. So for example, let's say if someone already drinks like matcha or something, right? They drink matcha in every single video just because they like matcha, and their audience is used to seeing them drinking matcha. If you're a matcha brand and you work with them, it's such a easy, I would say, creator brand fit. Versus, let's say, I've never drank matcha in my life, and now I have to like go and manually make a matcha and just start to drink like, hey guys, buy this matcha from me. I think that usually doesn't sell as well. The best ROI for both is usually I see it when like the influencer already does it, and maybe they even already use the brand's product, and the brand is just leveraging on the influencer to accelerate that timeline. So maybe what would have taken them a year to get this amount of sales, they could get it in like 3 months with the influencer's help, right? So this is the only thing I would share on influencer use. And I think in their situation, I didn't go through every honorary that they gave for Good Vibes Club to. I would have just been a little bit more cognizant of like who I gave it to, right? But this is very stylistic, so I don't necessarily think that they did anything wrong here. It's just something that I really think of whenever I do any kind of influencer marketing, and also for you guys to be aware for your own business, like what to think of when you guys are using influencers. It's not as simple as just like I go and pay an influencer and then I give it to them, they have 100,000 followers, and then I just sell it overnight. It doesn't work that way. Risk and constraints when scaling. So before we talk about risk and constraints when scaling, we have to first understand which stage of the business Good Vibes Club is in. So I would say that they have already sufficiently completed the startup phase. And to know if you have completed the startup phase is when you have achieved some level of product market fit and some level of initial revenue, which they have. Next stage would be initial growth, right? So what's the gap between startup and initial growth? And usually for initial growth, you're looking for a viable way to have repeatable sales, right? If you look at their situation right now, they are very drop heavy, which is completely okay because they are a new, they just launched their brand into the market. But here are a few risks that you guys also have to be aware, especially when you are scaling your brand. So the first one would be operational scalability risk. So these are things like making sure that your logistics, your fulfillment, all of that, you have the infrastructure ready for you to keep up with the scale. Because this is one thing that's extremely important. The next thing would be to be aware of the over-dependence on a drop. So in their situation right now is completely cool because they literally like just launched their project into the market. But long term, you want to be aware of the importance of having a more recurring, monetizable business model. You're able to repeat it again and again and again and again and again. And I think there was a famous quote about what's the definition of a startup is you're looking for like a viable way to have repeatable sales plus product market fit. I think someone famous said that. And I think their situation right now, it will be looking for some way, some model to have recurring revenue, right? And I'll share in a little bit how they can do it, at least my take on how they can do it. Next thing would be being aware of cash flow. So usually a business at this stage, you gotta be super aware of your cash flow. You can easily burn through a shit ton of cash when you're growing too quickly. And I've experienced that, which is not that fun. When you feel like you're crushing it, but you don't really have enough cash in your business to grow. Here is how Good Vibes Club can future-proof their growth from startup to initial growth. And the first thing would be to have a clear digital and a physical product roadmap. I think they're crushing the digital one, so I'm not going to comment on that too much. I'll talk more on the physical product side. For the physical product side, I'll be super cognizant of making sure that any physical products that they do, it will be a good reflection, a good manifestation of the digital identity that their digital art has. So they have really amazing like 3D art, right? And a lot of people buy it and put it as a profile picture. I'll make sure that people who bought it feel like the physical product is such a good reflection of their digital identity. So I think this would be really like my North Star criteria to really think about. So what does that mean? I'll make sure that all their physical products are pretty much like museum grade, like collectible first, very aligned with the brand. And I think this would really set them apart from all their competitors right now in the space. And there's some things, I think just for fun, I was just like brainstorming if I were them, what I would consider. I would consider things that play along the lines of vibe as like a sensory layer. So maybe even doing things like a candle, which sounds super random. Like them launching a candle, it seems super off the cuff. But I think like co-branding with a candle brand and creating that scent, and the whole rationale of it is having it as a vibe. And this is such a vibe. I could see it being such a meme, like a little bit meme-ish, like someone posting a candle and saying that it's such a vibe, good vibes, and just like a fucking candle, and someone posting a candle on Twitter. I think that's such a, it's like very meme-ish and shareable and like vibe-ish, right? And for me at least, I feel like it aligns with the brand. The next thing, just for fun, I also considered the whole nature of NFTs, and the reason why it's so interesting to launch a consumer brand on it is because you can leverage on other people's list. So let's say on Web2, let's say right now if you want to work with Chanel, if you want to work with like a big brand, right? You want to work with a big consumer brand, usually a core brand will involve them launching your product into their email list, into their audience. But with NFTs, or with the blockchain more specifically, you can say that everyone who is a holder of A, B, C, D, E product, you guys get this thing because you own it. So you can use other people's list even without other people really giving you consent. This is like the power of the blockchain. So if I were them, I'll pick a couple of communities that really align with them. So artist-heavy communities. As the founders, we gotta make sure that we have enough cash to do this first. I would do something like super high perceived value, which they have already with the art, but cheap in the product side. So things like stickers or like a phone case. Okay, phone case maybe not so a good example, but something like super cheap, and give like 10,000 stickers away to their audience. I think that's such a good way to build like top of funnel, and it's low cost of acquisition for them, for people to enter into the Good Vibes Club ecosystem. And so this is something I also consider. And earlier I was sharing that they could target tech as a potential user. So I would look at what do all these people use, right? Art collectors, NFT enthusiasts, people in tech. They all have a super decked out workspace, having like monitors, like super cool keyboards, mechanical keyboards, those big what do you call it? Big mouse pads, right? Big pads. And I would maybe collaborate with a famous brand to do the like a co-branding with Good Vibes Club art on a chair, on a pad, something that could weave into someone's workspace. And I think that's such a good. For me, I would definitely use it. So I'm biased, right? I'll use this kind of products. If they sell it right now, I'll definitely buy it. Here are a few things that I think Good Vibes Club can consider in terms of readiness for growth. And I think for you guys this year, when you guys are growing a business from a startup to initial growth to like rapid growth, here are a few things that you guys have to be super aware of. I made this mistake. I wish someone told me this earlier. The first thing would be to make sure that you guys have a very strong fulfillment partner. I've had so many friends who have great product, great marketing, but the fulfillment partner, some of them couldn't keep up or they screwed them over halfway through, and it really caused a lot of cash flow issues if you guys are not cognizant of this. The next thing for Good Vibes Club scenario is to be aware of their brand positioning. So I was sharing earlier that just to be a little bit more polarizing in their views against like doing projects just to extract from the audience, things that are more superficial, hype driven. I think I'll just like bite on this thing a little bit more. And also I think one good thing exercise to do is to think of like what is the big domino, what's the 2080 that you guys can do that could achieve all your goals, right? And that could be many different things for different kinds of businesses. But here are just a few things that I think you guys could consider when growing a business. Cost and breakdown. Okay, so cost and breakdown, very quickly, their revenue. So revenue was about $1 million. Okay, royalties from secondary sales, I was sharing earlier, 5% of all their secondary sales, so around $50,000. Product development, they took around 3 years to do this. Team size, this is a product where I think they really had quite good leverage on. They could leverage their animation studio team and resources, mixed with some freelancers, I believe. They'll work on Good Vibes Club. Estimated payroll, I think that payroll also they could leverage on the animation studio, and the founders themselves, clearly you can tell, put in a lot of sweat equity to do this before they launch. Here's an estimate of the costing that Good Vibes Club had, so you guys can also be aware roughly what cost you guys will incur when you guys will do something similar. First thing will be art creation. So here is where I think the founders just really put in sweat equity. But let's say if I was to do something like that, I would probably have to engage an animation studio like them, and I would roughly incur 6 figures easily for this, especially over the course of 3 years. I would easily at least incur 6 figures of cash just to have a similar level of quality of art with all the custom tools and everything. Smart contract development and tech, my estimate it will be like 5 to 7% of their sales. So this is the cost of developing the audit thing, deploying on Ethereum smart contract, auctioning mechanism, etc., etc. Next one will be marketing. So here again, I think the founders did amazingly well. The cost is just the founders' sweat equity. So one-to-one onboarding, personal engagement, dozens of calls. If you guys was to price this and add all these things up, they will likely be very unprofitable. So this is why, like, when you guys first launch a business, the founders have to be super hands-on in the trenches with the whole team. Platform and partnership costs. They partner with Superware. My estimate is that Superware funded their team, and also maybe there's some fees or revenue share. Who knows? Because Superware is quite a famous brand, at least in the digital art space. So I'm just estimating here like 1 to 5%, legal and admin costs, and also moving forward, ongoing operational costs, right? So community management, business development person, marketing, technical maintenance, paying the founders. This could eat up a lot of cash flow. So right now, I would say that the team is on a race to having like some form of recurring revenue, as shared earlier. Okay, here is potential future costs. So if they were to do physical products, it would be physical product development, logistics, shipping, samples, sourcing. There's a lot of cost that goes into it. This is pretty much a whole separate business, in my opinion. So the founders got to be really aware of the potential costs they could incur here. And in terms of profit, my take is that the founders are likely not looking to take much profits off the table at this point. If anyone wants to spend like so much time and effort, 3 years to build this, leveraging the animation studio, all this time, and putting themselves out there, putting your own art out there, I imagine they're really thinking like, could this become a household name? Could this IP resonate and hit a mass market in the future? Which I believe the founders are planning to do. I don't think that they necessarily shared it openly in the podcast that I've seen, but I think like deep down, I could just feel like, man, they're like really ambitious and they want to build this to something like really, really culturally relevant. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for them and what's to come. Here are some overall thoughts from myself personally, apart from the 3 things I've just shared, is I think that something interesting to think about is, would this Good Vibes Club, would this art launch that they did work without the animation studio? Right? Would this work if they didn't go down the digital asset path? And what are they thinking of long-term strategically? Yeah, these are the things that I'm just thinking, like, if I was a CEO and I was thinking about how I want to do this in the long term. Yeah, so I'm just like really curious to know like what the founders are planning and strategizing. These are definitely like long-term players. Yeah, these are definitely long-term players. So for anyone who's looking to get involved in the ecosystem, this is not financial advice, of course, but if anyone's looking to get involved in the ecosystem, definitely recommend, like, I think they are super cool founders, super safe to enter, not like scammy or shady, which is unfortunately the brand of crypto and Web3 right now. And I think that art, personally, art is very personal and subjective. I find the art really cool because each piece, even the cheaper ones, all look like one-of-one pieces, right? Like if you were to close your eyes and buy a random one, personally, I couldn't even tell which one is supposed to be priced at a premium because they all seem like it would depend on the person's personal taste. So I think this is usually a very good sign of a profile picture type of art collection. And from a business standpoint, right now moving forward, let's say right now if I was part of the C-suite team thinking about what would I prioritize moving forward, I would, and this is the game for a lot of business owners, right? You have 1,000 doors you can go through. You have some amount of cash. You have some employees, some partners, and you have some time and energy. Especially if you have a family and kids, there'll be even less time, right? But what are you going to prioritize? Like which lever do you want to go all in on to get the result that you want? I think if I were them, I would be really thinking of, I'll say 2 things. I'll really consider like going super heavy on creative, which I think they already are. I could tell that they're looking to go heavy on Instagram and TikTok. The founders, from my observation, they are so concerned on the quality of art. They want everything to be like such a high quality. I think if they were to create a separate account, right? If I were them, maybe creating a separate account on TikTok, on socials, where they show the behind the scenes of the creation of the art. One of those like TikTok accounts where people do art from start to finish that go like crazy viral. I think that they have that potential to do that in a huge way. So I'll really consider that on the marketing side. And on the physical product side, their first product I think would be super important. And I want to ensure that their current holders of the Good Vibes Club are really happy, while also bringing in new audiences to be part of this community. And yeah, storytelling, all that, I think they're already crushing this. So I'm not going to comment on this too much. If anything, from a business standpoint, I would consider these two things. A bit about myself. I dropped out of Edinburgh and Stanford University about 7 years ago. I bootstrapped an Amazon native health brand to 100,000 customers. Number one in Amazon health subcategory. And I also sold a company last year to a brand called AutoFit. It's a health brand. And I've built a SaaS company to 2,000 clients, 8 coaches. And right now, I'm building Minted, which is a media platform to help turn JPEGs into household brands.
What would you generally say differentiates a serious builder in the Web3 space from a more scammy one? And what are usually the early indicators that you see?
Instead of using scam, let's assume that most people have like good intentions to not scam their audience. I would say maybe the word would be to extract a lot of money from the audience, or to not have the intention to scam, but they know at the back of their head that this project is going to end at some point or end quite quickly, and one thing to extract as much cash out of the system. And I'm not here to judge if it's good or bad. I'm just saying that this is something that happens quite often. So usually you can tell this with people jumping into things that are narrative driven in that juncture, because it's easier to raise money, it's easier to get people to buy into your thing. So right now I think like Info5 is trending. So you see a lot of Info5 companies pop up. And what that would mean would be it's easier to pump a token price, do TGE events. And from a business standpoint, you get lower cost of acquisition and you get more organic reach. Low cost of acquisition, more organic reach, and easier to raise funds. Yeah. So usually my senses would go off when I see a lot of people just jumping into something like because it's trending. And usually a founder who's more serious would not care so much about, they'll be cognizant of the trend and consequences of it, but not care about it in the sense of, let me change cues here because this is trending or is hype. They want to do something that they usually like themselves, and they want to do it for the long term, regardless of what's trending. And something I would note, this is not really a question you asked, but something I observe is also like really good founders would build something that they want to build that solves a meaningful problem, and they will wait for the trend to come to them. And I think that's usually like what I observe from like really experienced founders. Really experienced founders usually do that. So they can get both, right? They build something awesome and then they wait for the timing and then they hit it too. Yeah.
So the next question, what would you say is their biggest moat?
The art? Right now, for now, the art. And they are art first project. From what I read up, the videos I watched and their website, they are looking to create like the best quality 3D art of all time. And whether they achieve that or not is so subjective, right? Right now, their moat would be like the art. And I think one way to tell if the artist is really good is usually you can just look at their art and you can tell that this is from them, that this is their style. So I think right now it would be the art, and in the future it could be a lot of things. They have a lot of rails set up to potentially build right now. So yeah, we'll be curious to see what they do. I actually think that they already have some stuff planned apart from the launch of the art. Yeah, this is my take. Yeah, they already have some stuff planned. This is my sense, seeing how they move as like founders. I think they probably have, yeah.
Would you consider their current model product-led or personality-led or community-led?
Product-led? I think product-led, yeah. Most of these types of projects, they talk about building community, and community is really, if you break it down further, is like knowing who your target customer is, and really nurturing and providing value for them in a way that is meaningful. And I think that whether is it them or any other project or company, usually they would look to do this, right? Value at their customers. And especially for NFT projects, you can see it more. You can see it in a more. It's more forefront because everything is live. So you're doing on Discord. It's all like live together. Versus, let's say in Web 2, you just build it behind the scenes and you launch it, and then customers use it, and then that's it. And then maybe they use it again, and then they receive an email once in a while to buy something again. But I would say, yeah, they're very art first type of company, which I like, yeah. Like, from what I saw, like, I think there was one podcast I saw, I think they are art first, while also being aware that this is a business at the end of the day and they have to grow it. And I really like that they have this like good synergy. I'm curious to see what they do next. I'm like super curious to see what they do next, right? Because in the NFT space, you see a lot of people just come and go. And it's one of the reasons why I personally love the space so much. I've been in the space for like 7, 8, 9 years. But I just, but I've always just been looking for like up and coming projects that it's like so new that no one really knows about it. And I could just like work with the team full on and they build something like super fucking cool, like long term. And yeah, I would love to work in a web, and to be involved and contribute somehow to the Web3 space because I like it so much. And apart from just as an investor, like an angel investor or just investing on a liquid market side, yeah, I really want to get involved and really, as you know, like I really want to. I mean, I also have a lot of ambition in terms of like building something that could really hit the market at scale. And I also don't see a lot of founders like having that ambition, which is okay. We all have different paths. So I'm just looking to like extract quick and then just kind of bounce. But I'm really thinking like long term here. Like, I want to do something for like 4 or 5 years, 7 years, which is long in the crypto space, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
If Good Vibes Club disappeared tomorrow, what would the space lose?
I think they will lose like 2 really good operators, like one really good artist. I think Chris, if I'm not wrong, is the artist, the creator, and then Ty is the business operations guy. I think they'll lose 2 like really talented people. And one thing about Web3 that I think is still so much room to grow is like the talent pool. The talent pool in Web3 is not as big as Web2 right now. Most of the like really good talented people are still in Web2. There's a migration though. Like I see a migration. Now AI is taking the headlines, but I see a lot of like really cool people building something in the space. And yeah, I just think like they are really like good operators. It's been a while that our personal team's seen like really experienced like business people, really experienced operators do something in the space. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. Like I think there's like it's a bit of a meme or a joke that in Web3, if you're doxxed, like meaning that if you're not anonymous, it's like a big deal. And I just find it a bit like half hilarious but half sad kind of thing. I mean, if just the bar is kind of crazy, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited to see like people who are really intentional about something long term. I hope what I say wouldn't bite me in the future. Who knows what will happen? There are a lot of cases where like people just seem so like you never know till you meet someone in person, right? Yeah, but yeah, they seem pretty cool. But there are a lot of other projects that sometimes on video they seem cool, but in the end it's just kind of like extract from the space, which is okay. I'm not here to judge. It's just like it'd be cool to see people really build something for the long term without taking short-term money, and just hold out a little bit longer, and you also make more money in the long term anyway. Yeah.
Okay, you can pick. I have one. What's the smartest thing they've done that most people missed? This is option number 1. Option number 2 is what do you find most fascinating about Good Vibes Club?
I'll answer both. The smartest thing that they did was to work on this for 3 years and just wait. I think that's one of the smartest things that they did. Work on it for 3 years and just wait. Wait for your time. And I'm fascinated that I didn't hear about the mint. Yeah, honestly, if I saw the mint, I would have like at least bought a couple. Yeah, I just like I think I was just doing other stuff. This is the thing with NFTs, right? Or like this space. It's just sometimes you're just there, you buy it. If you didn't see it, you didn't see it. Yeah, so I think if I was at the mint, who knows what would have happened, but I think I would at least buy like quite a few. Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's easier to look back on hindsight, but yeah. Thanks everyone for watching the breakdown, the case study. If you're a founder, I hope this has been insightful for you to see how you can launch your own company, your own brand, whether it's in NFTs, digital art, or even in Web2. Fundamentals are fundamentals. Principles are principles. There's a reason why business fundamentals are business fundamentals, right? And the best people, the masters, usually focus on the fundamentals. Also, if you're an investor, now this one is not so investment heavy, but I would say in my other videos, I talk more about like what to think about when investing in a project. And I think if you're just a general builder in Web3, if you're a general builder in Web3 and looking at build in the long term, I'm excited for you and I'm rooting for you. Do something awesome. Please also comment below on what you found the most insightful and which parts you guys didn't like too. Yeah, I'm looking to really like improve the video and the format and to make it more entertaining, more educational at the same time. Yeah, just feedback will be so helpful. If you guys think it's like dog shit, like tell me too, man. But this is ass, bro. I'm like, yeah, sure, man. Sure. I'm gonna improve. Okay, anyway, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all I got. Okay, see you guys.